hear another story about Jesus as a child today. He's not a baby anymore. In this story, he's about 12 years old. So some time has passed by. We know about how he was born and being presented in the temple and the flight to Egypt. We know about the wise men, all those things. And we know that at some point an angel appeared to Joseph, his father, and said, it's safe to go back to Israel, to your land. And so they did, and they went and lived in Nazareth in Galilee. So I'm going to read the story, and we'll have a few words and things to talk about after. This is from the Bible, and I actually have a Bible today because I don't have a little booklet for this one. And so I have to have my glasses. This is from the book of Luke. Now, his parents, Jesus' parents, went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up according to custom. And when the feast was ended, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. His parents did not know it, but supposing him to be in the company, they went a day's journey, and they sought him among their kinfolk and acquaintances. And when they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem seeking him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening and asking questions, and all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When they saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said, Son, why have you treated us so? Behold, your father and I have been looking for you anxiously. And he said to them, How is it that you sought me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house? And they did not understand the saying which he spoke to them. But he went down with them and came to Nazareth, and was obedient to them, and his mother kept all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. Okay. A couple things. One thing that's important to understand is that the temple in Jerusalem would have been the only temple in that whole country for the Jewish people to worship at. Today, if you're Jewish, pretty much every city has, if it's a big enough city, it has a temple or a synagogue where they go to worship as we go to church. But this was the only one back then, and it was very important, and you had to go to Jerusalem, to the temple. The other thing is that the holiday they talk about, Passover, the Feast of the Passover, that was a very important feast or holiday or celebration for the Jewish people. And so it would have been a really big deal. And that is why all the family came down to the temple in Jerusalem. So they made a journey to get there. So those are just two things to kind of know as background for the story. So I've got our temple here, and here's our friends from the other day, Simeon and Anna. But we're just kind of pretending they're general teachers in the temple. There probably would have been more than that. And off to the side, whoops, here comes the family of Joseph and Mary. They were probably in a big group for safety. Aunts, cousins, uncles, friends probably would have all traveled together for this because they were all going to the same place, and they had to pass through some dangerous areas on the way. So they arrive at the temple. And this would have lasted several days. They would have spent some nights there in Jerusalem. And when it was time to go back home, the feast was ended. The group, remember it was large, these are just 4, but there would have been more people than this. The group went a day's journey from Jerusalem. So they walked or rode on donkeys a whole day away. And then suddenly, Mary's looking and she doesn't see Jesus with them. She thought maybe he was with his cousins. So back go Mary and Joseph. Whole nother day's travel. Probably pretty angry. And they look everywhere in the city, and they finally found Jesus in the temple. And he was sitting with the teachers and talking with them and answering questions as if he were a grown-up and not just a 12-year-old boy. They were amazed, it said, at how he understood things. But Mary said, "Son," just paraphrasing what she might say today, "why did you do this to us? We were so stressed out. We couldn't find you and we were worried. Why on earth did you stay behind? We've looked everywhere." And Jesus then said, "Did you not know," his little hood fell off, "did you not know that I would be in my Father's house?" And he doesn't mean Joseph, his father. He means God, his father, in the temple. Thinking of that as God's house. And then he knew it was time to go. And they went back up to Nazareth. And he was 12 years old at this time. So we know some things about Jesus when he was very, very young, and then when he was 12. And then we don't hear any more stories about Jesus for a while until he's a grown-up. So these are kind of the stories we've been hearing since Christmas, are kind of the stories of his birth and growing and, the things that happened to him that were important. We don't know a lot of the everyday things. And then this is the last story about him as a child. So I always wonder what other stories there might be. So just thinking about it, have you ever been lost in a big crowd from your parents? And whether you're 3 or whether you're 12, I'm asking this question. How did you feel at that point? And also, how did your parents feel, do you think? And what then did you and your parents feel when you were reunited, when they found you? And in the story, how did Jesus seem to feel in the temple? His family had all left him, not on purpose, but he stayed behind. And he seemed pretty comfortable and not worried or scared. And I think that's an interesting part of the story.